right. Yes, we are live on all our platforms. So here on our webinar platform and also on our YouTube channel on SME Banking TV. So welcome everyone. My name is Olena Gryniuk. I'm the CEE director at the SME Banking Club. I will be your host today. And today we will talk about open banking and PSD2 regulations, and maybe even PSD3 regulations. And let me at once introduce my guests today. Olga Levandovska, Product Manager of Open Banking and Open Finance Solutions at GD Next, which is an open banking provider, a joint Swiss-Ukrainian company. And Joanna Boroń, Open Banking Team Manager at Alior Bank, one of the biggest commercial banks in Poland. Welcome, Olga and Joanna.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Olena. Thanks for having us here.
Thank you for joining. So before we go to our topic, let me very shortly mention organizational information. So we plan our webinar for 45 minutes. We are recording our webinar, so right after we finish, you will receive the link to the video and the presentations. And we start from the presentation, and this will be the first part of the webinar, and the second part of the webinar will be devoted to the Q&A session. So please type your questions or comments in the chat, even during the presentation, and we will have time and we will be able to answer all your questions and read your comments. And for our viewers that are watching us on YouTube, if you would like to participate in that discussion, please register by the link you see in the stream description to our webinar platform to have this opportunity of interaction. So let's go to our topic, open banking and PSD2. This topic we've been discussing actively from 2019 when here in the region banks started to prepare their APIs, let's say, to open their APIs due to the PSD2 regulations. And now just a very short statistics, let's say, information on the status quo of the business cases of such implementations for SME customers. So if we watch at this segment, we see that 8 banks in the CE region implemented account aggregations into their mobile applications for SME customers, which are mainly here the examples for the sole entrepreneurs. So for the companies, this is a very rare function. So we have 3 banks in Poland, 1 bank in Czech Republic, 1 bank in Bulgaria, 1 bank in Slovakia, 1 bank in Romania, and 1 bank in Turkey. If we also have a quick look on how third-party providers here in the region can use the account information services, I brought here the example of one of the fintechs in Poland, which is called SMEO, and they use it, so asking a concern from the customer. So this is an invoice finance company, and when the SME customer uploads the invoice to get financed, they are asked to give a consent to actually receive this account information from the customer's bank. So if the consent is given, then the third-party provider gives it using the PSD2 process regulation. And if customer does not give that consent, of course, in that case, they should upload the bank statement by themselves. So these are the small number, let's say, a very limited number of business cases that we see for the SME customers. These are the snapshots and the results of our annual studies that we do every year. So these are the data for the end of last year. This year we will be updating our studies and the information for that year will be available from autumn. So if you would like to have this very detailed information and access to that, I invite you to become our members. And also maybe one point from my side from which I would like to start and this discussion and give the word to you ladies is that again here we saw very kind of less cases for SME customers than we saw it for the individual customers. For the segment of individual customers, of course, the situations is much better for that segment. And if you talk about large corporations, so probably the situation for them is also better because very often with the top banks they can have direct access via the APIs and actually get this information about the account history or transactions directly to the ERP systems. So this is actually useful for them as well. So all we know that updated regulations are coming, and we hope they will bring some changes, some positive changes, especially for SMEs. So let's discuss that in detail. Let's start, Olga, with you. Please share with us your experience in helping financial organizations in the region to implement open banking. And then, Joanna, let's discuss your experience at Alior Bank. Olga, you're welcome.
Okay, so thank you, first of all, for joining this webinar and the discussion panel with SME Banking Club. I'm not from that famous Polish football family, fortunately from the other one, and I'm from Kiev. To explain why I'm going to share with you some thoughts related to the webinar topic, which is time to rethink open banking and benefit from API. I would like to tell you a few words about my background. I have more than 15 years experience in banking industry, mostly as product manager in, by the way, SME and corporate businesses. And of course, several years I have worked for service providers. Currently, I'm a product manager in a Swiss-Ukrainian company. Company is located in Switzerland, but R&D office is here in Kiev. So, but let's move closer to our topics. So we'll talk today about the obstacle prerequisites for efficient API management. I will focus on developer portals and sandboxes as key elements of success. And we'll explain you how to become a well-organized API organization and use your bank capabilities for that. So we'll also have a brief, I believe, brief review on how to actually build your value proposition in the open banking ecosystem. So let's move closer to a core expertise. Our company is a member of Berlin Group Advisory Committee. And as of today, we operate in more than 8 countries, and in our solutions are used in various numbers of TPPs and financial institutions in Europe. We cooperate with open banking market players in our daily business, and we help to become PSD2 compliant, expose financial APIs, and additionally to build value-added services on top for those fintechs who are really interested in that. And we are accustomed actually to participating in meeting discussions with the TPP associations. We participate in conferences, relevant working groups. As you can see from this map on the slide, our team knowledge actually goes beyond the European Union. We are aware of what's going on in specific of several neighborhood countries. In 2021, we also joined Open API group in Ukraine in order to develop local open banking standards and adopt a Berlin Group standardization initiative. And this year we were conducting open banking workshop for the Association of Albanian Banks. So this is where actually the understanding of the pains from both sides, open banking API providers and consumers, I actually came from. And this is why I decided to raise this topic today, the topic of efficiency and what any financial institution actually can do to improve this efficiency. I assume I will not tell you something you don't know, really. But the goal of this webinar is rather point out the important pieces of the big puzzle, and the pieces that are missed, maybe partially forgotten, maybe were deprioritized by open banking ecosystem players, and during the implementation process and after the implementation process. But I think they shouldn't be ignored.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Olga. We do hear some noise from your microphone, which is a bit louder than your voice. I don't know what it could be, but if you can check it.
Yeah, is it now better?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Super. Okay. So coming back to the presentation, I want to stress that for the newcomers, for those countries who are on their way implementing the open banking framework, that should serve as maybe hints, I don't know, or some advices. Because unfortunately, some approaches created enough pain and problems for API consumers and for end users, for payment service users. And in some cases, API management required unnecessary expenses. So let's get started with the topic. What was really discovered during our cooperation with financial institutions, with TPPs? We've heard a lot that from banks, for example, okay, we've done the compliance part and haven't received any single request for 5-6 months. Or, okay, we made a lot of investments and they will never be returned. We have doubts on that, or something like that. And yes, in fact, there was a lot of integration problems that mostly fall on the shoulders of service providers, maybe integrators, but of course, a lot of them, a lot of costs and investments were done by financial institutions. I will use this term financial institution because, in some countries, not only banks has this right to open and serve accounts, payment accounts. So I hope it will be clear for you. Speaking of the pain points and the integration problems, they are related to that a lot of interpretation of the same standards, if we speak of the European Berlin Group standards, were taking place. Also, the same realization, for example, for authentication procedure. Specifications allowed to use, let's say, 6 flows, and it was up to a bank or financial institution to choose which one of that to implement. So that caused a lot of problems, and I joined them, let's say, in groups. So despite these integrators' efforts who tried to build the solutions to connect any bank, any API, and their varieties, a lot of market players faced with such problem as financial institutions do not provide proper level of API performance, for example, or they do not support test environment, pay not enough attention to TPP onboarding process, TPP role validation, certificate validation. Some of them could return an empty error message, or the API documentation was not updated on time. So there were problems that didn't help API providers to create new opportunities for successful open banking experience. And they didn't allow actually to benefit from those investments in many cases. From our experience, again, because today I will probably translate our accumulated experience that we have. These are the prerequisites to be fulfilled by financial institutions in order to really stay efficient in API management. And you can see here a lot of actually well-known principles. So there might be a dedicated team in place. Your API's infrastructure has to be reliable. It's important to have the performance and monitoring and support. Have the clear business model in place, clearly see the use cases which you follow as an API service provider, and of course update your API documentation. But two, let's say, components here, are very important. Not to lose this connection between the API provider and consumer. These are developer portal with simple and easy UX and testing sandbox. And I have to admit that in practice, not all of these components are really well managed by financial institutions. Of course, there are gaps, areas for improvement. So let's try at least to look at several of them and analyze what can be done better. And we know it by heart. So I decided to put this in a pay review of the best developer portals dated by the first quarter 2023. And that only actually proves the level of importance of the developer portal. Banks that show leadership in the using of open banking services and open finance services, they are really, they are good not only in the developer portal usability and functionality, they're really also good in these services providing and consume. And also I would like to share with you the criteria that were evaluated and which are sensitive for this new segment of clients. Because with open banking and with open finance, banks actually got a new client segment, which we called before TPPs, third-party providers or payment service providers with licenses. And according to a new definition from open finance standards, we may call them API clients, which is actually correct because another bank could be an API client of the bank that we are considering. So, and this scope of criteria includes functional scope. It includes API documentation. It includes developers, let's say, usability and developers' user experience, and of course, community developer development and support. And these are important. Actually, it's easy. This is an important criteria to be efficient, to stay efficient. Let's look at an example. My advice is actually to look at the leaders, learn from them, how to improve your own experience, how to accelerate the collaboration with TPPs through onboarding. Yeah, and among the best practices, I would also pay your attention not only to bank developer portals, but going beyond, why not? There are other service providers, and I added here on the slide Visa, because they really made a super useful, easy to work with developer portal. So why not to mention it? And you can find easily rated developer portals to learn from your competitors. What should be available on the developer portal? Of course, the guide, API description, maybe some explanation of the errors, notification regarding the updates and migrations, technical support contacts, API definitions, open API files, and last but not least, and the very important part is, yes, provide access to your testing environment. Why Sandbox or testing environment is so important? Because when you have a working, ideally dynamic sandbox, it allows you to test any new feature and point really on the go, quite fast, and it makes possible for your partners, for other service providers, to integrate with your interface within one day. And we have this, let's say, measurement from the researches made by big aggregators. Yeah, so 1 day is feasible. It provides you the fastest, actually, the feedback from fintechs. And additionally, it can serve as calibration environment during the innovation process. I personally believe that, let's say, Sandbox is a kind of channel, yeah, feedback channel with your new segment API client. What is important that your Sandbox should reproduce the production environment. So the same flaws plus extra that you might test, yeah. And of course, you cannot benefit from open banking or open finance without having a proper organizational setup, without having proper capabilities in place. So let's start from the API organization. And these are the questions that you have to answer, actually, in order to support your API interfaces. So since you are a part of open banking ecosystem, you have to care how secure is your APIs, how stable is the environment, I don't know which APIs, which use cases we should consider next, how to control the performance, what impact your processes. You should remember and not forget, about the monetization part, marketing, pay attention to competitors, to, let's say, talk to your customers, ask about them about their pains and needs. And don't forget that there will be an improvement, yeah, that you should follow and maintain. And that means that you should take care not only about the technologies, but about the processes and about the people, yeah. New customer segment requires financial institutions to become full cycle, yeah, API organizations, and have their with all the related outcomes. So you should be able to answer all those questions, and in addition, yeah, you should take care about the 3 groups of capabilities. Technical group includes infrastructure, architecture, documentation, API lifecycle management, some security issues, tech monitoring. There are also a functional group where you should take care about the identity access management, your customer engagement, ecosystem management, take care about the partners, yeah, because you will definitely collaborate with third parties. And the operational group, API strategy, product development, and delivery management as let's say, to cover the full life cycle of your endpoints and your interfaces. Of course, don't forget about the relationship management. Okay, so since I covered the, let's say, subject, how to manage, how to stay efficient, we can move on to the rest part. And here I would like to, let's say, cover the topic, what to manage, which services, where to start maybe. And I would like to show you so-called bank checklist, yeah, that can help to navigate you through these wanted to tell you lifetime, but okay, yeah, through this open banking experience. So it's important to listen to your customers and focus on really on resolving the pains. In fact, when we asked financial institutions reps, did you ask your users, would they like to use this endpoint with additional, let's say, information and data that you decided to implement it? And we didn't receive the clear answer, oh, yes, of course. So don't forget to ask your customers, yeah, about the solution. Investigate your strengths, where you're really good at, maybe payments, maybe some analysis of financial transactions of your customers. So find your strengths and reuse them to create new services. Find your niche, yeah, define the unique value proposition that you offer to the specific segment. Connect to your company goals, and this is very important because banks can follow different business models, and some of them do not require actually to develop an API interfaces, and a lot of them. So bank can act as in the model of banking as a service. That means you will definitely not require so many product management, yeah, for that. And of course, it's about creating an environment, collaborative environment, to interact with your partners, talk to your TPPs. A simple thing that is really ignored in a lot of cases. Specify, of course, and the second part here is more tactical, I would say, and technical a bit, and it's about this, that before implementing, really specify the use case and set the priority, where to start, define source data, scope for each service, make data models, define the authorization flows, because we are talking about the open banking and of course SCA. So which flows you are going to implement and support and then maintain, yeah, and identify the gap for the implementation, estimate the budget, of course, and the common cycle, try to prototype, test, repeat, and use your sandbox for that. So to stay on track, let's say, it's better not to forget also to track the API function distribution within your customer base. If you don't have your customer base yet, look at your region, look at your market, look at the markets you want to enter, and apply, if you're really exposing, as a financial institution, if you're exposing APIs, then use business and technical monitoring tools. They are there to help you to see what's going on, yeah, where you have the most requests, where you have the let's say time frame of the requests processing, and of course design thinking methods always help. Yeah. And another useful thing that might help you to find your unique use case is look for, especially when now we are talking about SMEs, yeah, that are really, and I cannot explain why, but they're really missing part in the open banking framework, especially in the Central Europe. But I know you have the same problem is relevant for the Eastern and Southern Europe. So try to learn and know a lot about the typical use cases. I will also tell you an advice that the most mature market for reusing open banking services for SMEs is the United Kingdom. Yes, some of these use cases may not be relevant for your local markets, but you will find a lot of interesting ideas there. And I would say that now we see like groups, yeah, of use cases, and they are very similar to the use cases that are applied to private individuals, to a retail market. So it's all about the financial management, integrated cash management, cash flow forecast. One of the, let's say, group of use cases is automated loan applications, credit scoring models. Then another group is related to identification, verification, KYC, and AML checks, payment reconciliation, receivables management, special, let's say, group that is really interesting for many markets, that e-invoicing due to upcoming legislation, and of course tax management, accounting. Here also we have the group liquidity check before approving a contract or any other service. For example, if your partner requires a very quick, let's say, liquidity check, then through open banking service you are able to share the basic information about it. And I added also a few examples of SME use cases based on financial management, lending, accounting, also some payment services. But these are fintechs that operate mostly, as I said, and unfortunately on UK market. But I think that might just complete the picture. Not all of them, as I mentioned, can be relevant, but you can find some very interesting ideas. You can learn from them how the business model works, how they really monetized the value, and having let's say the internal understanding of your customer needs, you can even borrow some good ideas to implement. So here you can see several fintechs like Anamani, Coconut, Ember that are actually integrating the AIS, mostly AIS, and some of them also cover payment initiation through Layer. And you know this integrator, it operates through all over the Europe. And here are the examples for SME payments and even the payroll product. So a very good example is Crash and the Comma, that I added here. And to summarize, actually, all the described steps and maybe an advices, they are a part of the value proposition canvas. So here I would like to refer a very simple Harvard Business School materials, and just to show you that answering the simple questions like what your customer needs, yeah, what is your core skills and where you're really good at, trying to compare with your competitors, it will be easier for you to find the unique value. Find your niche where your financial institution is really good at. Listen to your customers, listen to your API clients, and start small. I mean, it could be one service, one endpoint, but you can really monetize the value of it. This is all from my side. I think we're still in time. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Olga, for great presentation. Now, before we go to the Q&A session, I would like to ask Joanna to share your experience at Alior Bank, because just to let know our attendees that actually Alior Bank was one of the leaders here on the Polish market with implementing, I would say, open banking services, with opening the Sandbox, also helping some TPPs to get license. So please tell us more about your experience on open banking implementations and open API management.
Thank you, and thank you, Olga, for a great presentation. I was listening very carefully and have taken note of some areas that we as a bank or as banks here in Poland were struggling with in the past. And actually our experience is gathered on both sides of the barricade, because as Olena just said, we are offering an open API, so we are acting as an ASPSP, so account servicing account service provider. Yes, so we are holding the accounts of our customers, but we also act as a TPP, and we are offering open banking services to our customers as well. And therefore, I'll be glad to share some lessons that we've learned alongside the way we've had in the past. So first of all, I truly agree that you should appreciate the value of Sandbox, because it's like helps you with everything. It not only helps you detect all of the bugs and errors that you have in place in your API services, but it can also help you make some decisions, because I really tend to disagree that you have to carefully map all of the API services that you want to develop. You can start, as you just said, Olga, with just one service, or you can even release some sample services on your Sandbox environment, and you can just let your customers test them. And I believe that this is a very good path, because you can start with just a proof of concept. You can just like us, like Alior Bank, let other companies test them. For example, we have an acceleration program for startups in Alior Bank, and the participants are actually they're just invited to test all of the services that we have in our Sandbox, and if they have any ideas of new products that they want to implement on the market, they are free to do so, and we are ready to cooperate with them. And we have also released one testing service for our corporate customers, which is FX trade service, which is now on the Sandbox, and our customers can either place an order for an FX transaction or receive some real-time, real-time pricing for the currencies that we offer in our bank. So this is first thing. Second, this is the true lesson learned that we have to state here, is that you should not underestimate the cost and the effort that is related with establishing the APIs, because it won't work just like that you build the API and you are not doing anything else with that. You have to have working support, usually 24/7 support team that will help your customers. You need to establish great monitoring for your APIs and KPIs that will help you achieve some levels of availability and effectiveness of your interfaces. And of course, you need to take care of some technical issues such as API versioning and things like this, because like this is a real life example from a couple of days ago. There is one entity who actually had some struggles with API versioning, and it turned out that we had difficulties in just establishing a full-time connection with them because they just turned off the previous version of the API, which just came out as a complete disaster for us. So you should not do this. This is not the best practice, definitely. And what else? Any other lessons learned? So yeah, just to sum up this, what I've just said, you should treat the API management not as a sprint. This is not something like a short project. You are just establishing an API and letting it go. It won't work like that. You have to treat it like a marathon, of course, and it's great to have an API product manager. It's great to have a community manager who will take care of developers' needs and who will actually collect the so-called voice of developers, so VOD. And this is just a great statement, but it actually works. You need to work with your developers if you want to offer them the great developer experience. Mm-hmm. And maybe lastly, just to summarize what Olga was talking about, you cannot achieve everything. I truly believe that you have to clearly define your customer. So you need to understand that the APIs are very powerful tools, but they need to serve real needs and real customers. So you have to make a decision whether your customer is going to be a TPP or a financial institution, or is it going to be your corporate customer? Because it makes quite a huge difference. The first option, when you are serving only TPPs, means that you actually are building financial services that will be further used by to develop some services infused with financial APIs. Or you can decide to create services for your existing business customers. For example, let them, download your account information, use previously mentioned FX services or payment initiations. And if you want to do this, it could be a huge API transformation because your whole organization will have to think about internally built APIs as those that could be potentially exposed externally in the future. Oh, and maybe last thing, standardization. I will say it every time because it's really, really difficult to connect to different APIs when they are not following the correct standard. And we have to work it doesn't matter if we are from banking or from fintech industry, we have to work together in order to create common interfaces, because this is the only way to achieving success.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you, Joanna. Is it actually a big team required to implement open banking and support open APIs in the bank? How big is your team, if you can share this with us?
It's like, it depends, because I would say that if you want to implement only the legal requirements, so the PSD2 compliant version of the API, it doesn't have to be that huge, but you still need some business people who will take care of the documentation, will take care of developers and their issues. And you still need some technical people who will take care of the development of implementing regulatory changes into the services. I would say at least one Scrum team is required in order to make it work. And I know that for some organizations who are API driven, they have like 50 or even more people working on that, whole tribes.
All right. Okay, let me read the question that we have from our attendee, from Liliana. Thank you, Liliana, for your question. So yes, Liliana works in microfinance institution. She's from Montenegro. And we use core banking software, which does not have APIs. We also do not have developed data warehouse. we have adopted digital transformation strategy, which includes main digital projects, introducing CRM and business intelligence tools. What would be your suggestion regarding this? Should we first develop CBS with APIs or developed data warehouse or both? What would you say? Olga, maybe.
Yeah, let me maybe comment first. Of course, if it's not mandatory yet,
but it will. I mean,
it will. Yeah, it will. Both ways actually are applicable. I mean, you can proceed either first with your internal systems optimization and digitalization, or you can proceed, let's say, with open banking services, which are mandatory, and you have to fit the timeline to the
maybe this is one more comment from my side. So if there is a non-banking lender, which is actually, I think in that case, even PSD2 is not mandatory. So this such a company could be a TPP actually, and this is a matter of choice, I guess, more than the compliance.
If they do not open accounts, because I mean, in some countries, legislation allows without having a banking license, with the license of financial institution, to open and maintain only that payment accounts.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, if your company is out of the scope, then you can be interested only as a TPP. Maybe this is the case, and it's not clear. Well, I mean, technically everything is possible. That will be your home task, to analyze the gaps, analyze the costs, compare, and make a decision. I mean, this is quite a specific case, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, from the customer perspective, I guess it could be more easy, to give the consents that please get the information from the bank account, instead of doing this manually and uploading this information while applying for a loan, let's say. But as you said, this is probably a matter of cost of investments versus possible profits from that. Joanna, do you have some recommendation here?
And I would just add that you can always try to find some solutions that are already available on the market, because there are many account aggregators who could just provide such service for you. So you don't have to develop the connections to other banks yourself, but you can make use of the solutions that are already in place. Maybe that might be easier for you, because then you can decide whether you actually need such services or not. Or maybe the data warehouse is more important, because you need to store the data. I'm not an architect.
Let's get to the question of actually the market of TPPs. How do you feel it? Is it becoming bigger year by year? Do you have, Joanna, maybe in Alior Bank, do you have more and more requests every year from TPP providers? Because we had such discussions with the banks after actually the implementation of PSD2, right after. And of course, everybody complained that, yes, we invested in the infrastructure, but the number of the requests is not big enough to make a business case from that. What is your experience right now? Joanna, would we start?
I mean, that definitely means that everything is... So I believe that a lot has changed in the recent years, because currently we have like at least 350 TPPs registered in European Economic Area, and actually Poland, my home country, it's on the third place among all of the countries that have the most TPPs registered. So we've been experiencing a huge boom, let's say. And many more TPPs are now using our services than in 2019 when we launched our services. we in Poland have 30 TPPs registered in Poland, and like about 150 that can serve our customers based on passporting rights. So I believe it's a lot. And we've seen that a lot of them are now using our PIS services as well, because this is the great alternative to the paid by links, they would say. Yeah. And we've noticed that they have multiple different business models, especially those that use the accounts information service might be considered very interesting. Because, for example, in the Polish market, we have a brand new service for tenants. So it is, you can call it the rent passport, something similar to the UK version of such service. It actually means that you can, you as a tenant, a person who wants to rent a home or a flat, can confirm that you are actually a good, you have the great credit worthiness, and you can confirm your identity so that it makes it easier for you to rent a flat.
And Olga, do you have some comment here?
Yes, I mean, what we've noticed last year that starting from 2022, there is no such significant increase of new registered TPPs year by year. Yes, the numbers that was mentioned by Joanna, they are correct. And there are countries that have the most passported TPPs, most numbers, and there are countries where actually they are mostly registered, and that I suggest that because that depends on the level of the, let's say, country matureness in fintech services, of course, in the fintech industry. What we also noticed that this year, some of TPPs were excluded from the registers. Yeah. And that means that more attention is paid to security. Let's say through a certain period of time, maybe audits took place, maybe internal local authorities checks, but that is a good sign actually, because for users, for payment service users in many countries, these, despite the fact that open banking services are the most secured, for regular people, it is not obvious. So still there is a room, let's say, for education, for explanations, and SCA is not considered so smoothly in many countries, even though it's the safest way, and it's much more safer than the card payments. So I think it differs from country to country, but in some countries still we have this demand for the education that affects.
Simplified.
And PSD3 is targeted, and all these consultations and EBA reports were also dedicated to this security and new type of frauds and how to prevent them. But still, I want to spread this, let's say, message that this is the safest way to pay. Yeah, if we consider payments, so then it is.
We have a question from Yaroslav. Would any bank join open banking voluntarily, or it would be not possible without regulation? Well, at the moment, we see that regulation is the main push here.
It's in Europe. Worldwide, its situation is different. There are countries where the open banking framework was implemented, and it's really market-driven. They say, like India for sure.
United States, yeah.
Yeah, US is more market-driven market, but what we see in practice, it's all about the financial transactions, so there might be a regulation in place. Yeah. With time, following the market trends, or before, it should be regulated, especially the security. Yeah.
Let's have another moment to discuss actually the changes that are coming and in the context of the expected changes with RTS, right, which can actually bring less friction when using of the AIS services, yes, which should switch from a 90 days strong customer authentication to 180 days. So how this will impact the usage of the open banking services, and let's talk maybe a little bit also move to the open finance. What possibilities do you see here, and when it actually will happen? Joanna, maybe let's start with you.
Okay, I might start. So definitely European Commission never sleeps, and after they announced this strategy for digital finance in Europe, they actually undertook some serious steps to improve the quality of the regulation, and they decided to send a questionnaire to banks, European Banking Authority, and other market participants, and also the consumers, to share their opinion on the impact of PSD2 on the markets. After that, they decided to really release the amendment of the regulatory technical standards on the strong customer authentication, as you just mentioned, Olena, and the SCA validity will be prolonged to a maximum of 180 days. And for the user experience, it's going to be definitely a great change, because without any significant risk increase, it will mean that the customer will be logging only every 180 days instead of every 90 days. So you won't have to remember your login and password anymore. That is great, I believe. Yeah. And we also know that there is a revision of PSD2 already discussed by European Commission, and we know that it is going to be released by the end of this quarter, probably on the 28th of June. And it's probably not going to bring any revolution, but at least the unification of different regulation and interpretation sources. Because if somebody was working with PSD2, you might already know that there are different interpretations of the regulation, and it's really hard to implement it in a compliant way. And they also announced that it's probably going to improve the user experience, because some of the problems and some of the friction that was caused by improperly introduced APIs will be fixed and will be will be described in detail, so that the banks will know how to implement them. And of course, there is a new regulation underway, and this is obviously open finance or some regulation or on sharing more data sources. It's probably going to open up more banking data, not only the payment accounts, but also some investment accounts, some deposit accounts, and maybe it will also affect some other financial services or other industries, such as, for example, insurance. And it's going to mean a path towards new business models, I believe, based on data sharing and data analysis. And judging by the off-record and unofficial information, data sharing might probably be a subject of some contracts between parties and Commission. So it might lay a foundation for new data-based, let's say, value streams and monetization models. I think it's great.
Yeah, I think it's. I hope that it will also, increase the inclusion, the financial inclusion, especially for SMEs. And yes, you mentioned actually the example of India, which actually the implementation of open banking on the state level with their open network approach really increased incredibly the financial inclusion of the population. So this is actually no brainer, I guess. Olga, what would you comment here?
As we were the participants of the last Berlin Group conference, this topic were, of course, one of the key topics during those days, and we've got some insight from European Commission, from EBA, that yes, I mean, new reports and the regulation is coming soon. Regarding the open finance, I would like to comment that there were presented a new, group of services. We will have changes in the consent management in a more structured way. They've added to a consent types of, accounts to which you would like to provide the access, and that will also change the floor. There will be more clarity, I believe, in a new regulation regarding the arbitrage, because this part is really not clear in any country where we try to operate. Who is responsible for what? I mean, exposing APIs, providing access, then processing APIs, and then, for example, who is responsible for that fact that the payment wasn't actually executed because of some reasons. And all this responsibility split is also something that is demanded by market. And regarding the open finance services, we've heard a lot that it is really focused on corporates, and as Joanna mentioned, that these are the customer segment that can bring you monetization, and they clearly know what they need, but they also face the same problem that APIs that were built before for exchanging information, or it could be host to host, but in most countries it was already implemented as API interfaces, doesn't allow them to get the same information from different countries, because they're mostly worldwide groups, and they anyway have to adopt the APIs. So they, have this belief that open finance standard will allow a big corporate company to access the same information for some audit reports or for some financial management decisions from different countries, from different banks, from different within the same standard. But yes, this gives the hope that some of those services will be relevant and can be implemented for smaller businesses. And this is where I see the potential for medium companies, maybe not the smallest micro businesses, but the medium companies to benefit from that. So let's see.
Is it the perspective of the next year, or when should we expect this regulations towards open finance?
Something they promised, but I actually am not sure that it's the PSD3 or maybe the draft. Something they promised end of this month. Maybe another report.
All right, looking forward to it, really.
But yes, promising should be this year. Everything should happen this year.
Great. All right, to wrap up, we have the last question from Yaroslav. What are the competitive advantages for Alior Bank? This is a question for Joanna, compared to other banks in Poland, which are not so open banking friendly. What advantages do you see for yourself?
I would be glad to ask if that is from the TPP perspective or from the customer perspective.
All the perspectives.
Okay, if you are a TPP or a financial services company or even an SME, we are pretty much more open than other Polish banks to cooperate with you, because as I have already mentioned, we do have a quite nice developer portal with huge range of services that are offered, and you can test them if you want to, and you can of course share your ideas with us, and we can build on that together. If you are willing to release a product with cooperation in cooperation with bank, we can work on that using our or within our acceleration program. If you want to join us, you can write to us even right now, and our fintech partnership department will help you to just work with us. Hopefully we can work out together.
All right. Thank you very much, Joanna. Thank you very much, Olga. Thank you very much, our attendees, for staying till the very end, being active, and thank you for participation. See you next time online.
Thank you. Yeah.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye. And good luck to Ukraine with your open banking initiative.